Hello and welcome to Ivanti Service Manager Training. In this session, we're going to learn about business rules. We'll take a look at what a business rule is. We're going to take a look at some uses and some examples of business rules. We'll talk about the different types of business rules and how they might be used. And we're going to create a business rule or two of our own. So let's get started. Okay, so continuing with our hotel reservation business object, we're going to end up adding something to that. But before we get started there, I want to talk to you about some existing business rules. So I'm going to click on Incident. Now the business rules are tied to the business object. So here's my incident business rule. If I open up a record, I'll give you some ideas here. Now when we create a brand new incident, there's an incident number that gets generated, and some of the fields are automatically filled in. Let me actually create a new one so you can see. Okay, so it generated an incident number, and then it put values in some of these fields here. So these are all initialization rules. So when the record gets created, that's what's going to get filled in. Okay, let me put a customer in here. Good old Marcia. Can't print. She can't prompt. Okay, just get rid of that. And we'll throw in something in here. Okay, and I'm going to save this. Okay, now there's another there's another business rule that if a value changes in a field, so for example, if I change this status to resolved, okay, it triggers a business rule that now makes these fields required. Okay, let's put that back to active for now. All right. Another type of business rule is the calculation. So with our urgency and our impact, we're saying if urgency is medium, impact is medium, then make priority a 3. If urgency is, low, impact is medium, make it a 4. So that's a calculation rule. There's also a rule called a before save rule. And so those would be run as soon as somebody hits save, those would be run. And a good example of that is our modified by date and time right down here. So when somebody goes in and they hit save, this gets updated first. There's a function that says get the person's name that's logged in, and then the current date and time, and put those in there. So before save rule, it's going to run all of those and then actually save the record. Okay. Now, a difference between the business rule and a workflow is one of the main things is how it is triggered. So a workflow waits until you create or update a record and then hit save. When you hit save, it looks at the workflows. Well, a business rule doesn't wait until you hit save. If there's something that you want to see immediately, like that calculation or the fields required when I change this to resolved, those are good candidates for a for a business rule. All right. So let's go ahead and let's look at the back end of this, and we'll look at some of the business rules that have been set up for incident. I'm going to change my role. Click on my wrench, so I go into the configuration console. All right, and I'm going to go to business objects. Let's collapse that, and we're going to go to incident and business rules. Okay, so first off, you can apply business rules just to a specific form. So for example, in my incident here, maybe when I open this up, there's some fields that I want to have read-only, or there's some that get filled in some cases and not in others. So I could say, well, it's the exact same form, but when it's a layout tied to the Tier 2 role, these are not required, or these are read-only, or things like that. So you can apply the rules to just a form, or you can apply it to, all of the forms there. All right, so the first one we're going to look at is triggered actions. Expand that there. All right, and so triggered actions, here's some things here. If I back out, if I've got my incident set to resolved and then I back it out and I make it active again, this rule is going to run. Let's take a look at it. Okay, so what this is doing is it's saying if we update the status field from resolved to active, and then if I go to the next page, okay, here's the the action that's going to be run there. Okay, and those are just quick actions. You can create quick actions from within here, or you can create your quick actions from another location and just select those when you're in here. Select action. Okay, so I can see what these the actions are and what's going to take place. This one's copying. Can't get that wider, but it's copying the resolution to the comments tab. It's prompting the user for the note as to why it backed out that resolution, and then updating the first call resolution. So it's not done on the first call resolution, so we wouldn't want that marked. So that's one example. Initialization rules. Remember, these are the ones that are filling in the fields when you create a new record. So right here you can see the created by. That's got a function in there that's going to put in the current user name. So when I'm the one that's logged in and I create an incident, it puts my name in the owner field. And then it's got the created date and time, created by, and then this is the one that generates the incident number. Okay, there's a counter function in the product, and what this does is it takes that counter number, but it uses a function called get next counter number. So what that does is it increments it to the next available counter number. Let's see here. Anything else you want to? Those are the main ones there for the initialization. All right, editing and calculation. This is where we're going to find our priority here. So calculation rule for incident priority. So if you come down here, you'll see we've got if the urgency is high and the impact is a high, then it's going to be priority 1. Sorry. Else if the urgency is high and the impact is medium, all right, or the urgency is medium and the impact is high, then it's going to be a number 2. So that would be a calculation rule. Oops, let me collapse that. Read-only rules. Now we can make fields read-only on the form itself, but you can also come in here and set up a rule. So some of the fields you'll see right away, created by and date and time, those are read-only. You can't write in those fields right here. Okay. So the read-only here, this one here, it's saying that the object is read-only, meaning the record, when the status is set to closed. So we talk about that in the incident class, but once the status gets set to closed, these fields are locked down. Now, if you wanted any of those fields to be an exception, this would be where you'd come to make that change. So if I came over here to my pencil there, down here you've got exceptions. So if you want to have a couple fields that you can still write in, you can do that. All right, and then some of those are all pretty easy to figure out. Required rules. So remember, we've got the fields that have the red asterisks by them because they are required. So we've got things like the owner field is required, status, things like that. Remember, you can make fields required using the form as well, but you can do it with the business rules. The before save, this is where I mentioned that it's going to do all of these rules. When somebody hits save, it's going to carry out these rules and then actually save it. So here's where your last mod by gets updated, your last mod date and time, and so on. Okay, and then we have some with validation, but we do those in the validation class. Okay, So that's some business rules that are already in there, and you kind of have an idea of now of how you might use those. So what we're going to do is we're going to create our own business rule. So I'm going to come over here to the user interface, and we'll just kind of take a look at what we're going to do. So we're going to apply ours to our hotel reservations. All right. And so what I want to do is when I click on the new record here for the hotel reservations, I'm going to put a field in here that indicates whether or not they're a rewards member. And we're assuming that most of our customers, our guests, are rewards members. So I'm going to put that field in, and then I'm going to add it to the initialization rule to make sure there's already a check mark in there when I create the record. Okay, so we'll do that one. Okay, so I need to go to my business object. Right here. And I don't have a field for rewards member, so I'm going to add that now. Add new, and I'll do a Boolean. Okay, so there is my new field. I'm going to add that. And I have to save so it doesn't say new anymore. And I'm going to come over here to my form. And I'm going to put this on the form. Now, I'm just doing this right now on the, there it is, on the main form and the main business object. However, because this has extended business objects, this field is now available for me to put on the form for each of the extended business objects. I just have to go in and put that on. Okay, so I've created my field. Now what I want to do is I want to set up an initialization rule so that that's all automatically checked unless we go in and uncheck it. So still here on my business object, I'm going to come over here to business rules and initialization rule and add initialization rule. So over here I'm going to pick the field, which I called rewards member, and then I'm going to give this a name. All right, something like that. And then down here, this is where you're going to set up the expression. All right, so over here, I'm looking for that field. Actually, you know what? We don't add that field. We've got it right here. So what I'm going to put over here for the expression, remember the rewards member, I made it a logical field, so it's going to be true or false. Okay. All right, so I'm just making that true. Don't need to put the field name in here, just plain and simple. Okay, save that. It automatically turns it on. Okay, so you can see that that's been turned on. All right, now let's go over here. And I'm going to create a new record. Remember, I only put it on this form. I can put it on these, but I didn't. All right, so now I've got my new record, and it puts the check mark there indicating that they are a rewards member. Okay. Okay, so for my next one, what I want to do is I want to have another field, so I'm going to have to add another field first. And this is going to be the status of the reservation. And so if they cancel the reservation, I'm going to set up a business rule that's going to do something. Not sure yet what I'm going to do. But so let's go over here, Administrator. I am going to my main reservation business object. I'm going to add a field, and it's going to be a text field, and I'm going to call this one reservation status. Okay, and I could use, a pick list, an existing pick list if I want to, but for this one here, we're just going to type it in. All right, so I'm going to add that field, and I'm going to save, and then I want to see that field on my form. And I called it reservation status. I'll put that over here somewhere. Okay, and then save. Okay, so I would probably make that a drop down, so you could, use what you learned in the validation business object course and turn that into a drop down. But for this activity, I'm just going to freeform type in there. All right, so I've got the field added that I need. I'm still on my reservation business object, and I'm going to make a business rule that says when the reservation status field goes from, I'm just going to say when it switches to canceled, then I'm going to have it email the customer. All right, so business rules. This one's going to be a triggered action. Add my trigger. Okay. All right, so this one here, the first one is object. It's talking about the whole record. So if I create a record, delete it, update it. This over here is talking about just a specific field. So if I put a value in the field or I update the field, well, in my case, I'm going to say if I update the field, okay, here I'm going to select the field that I'm talking about. And so mine's going to be my reservation status, okay, and I'm going to say if it's changed to, okay, and so if it's changed to canceled, I'm going to come down further here. Now here you could have, you can put in an expression, so maybe it only applies to, certain records, but we're just going to do it for the whole record. I'm going to click on next. And I didn't create a quick action yet, so I'm going to create one from here. If I already had one, I could do the select action and copy from an existing one. But I don't have one, so I'm going to configure new action. It wants to know what type. So think back to the quick actions that we have. We have, update, insert child, things like that. Okay. What I'm going to do for mine is I'm going to have it send an email. And so I'm going to click on next, and it's going to let me set up this quick action. So we're going to send this one to, how about our host department? Okay, you have to click on the plus there for it to actually take it. So this is going to go to the host department, and subject over here, we're going to put in a guest cancellation. Okay. Oops, didn't mean to do that. And then in the body down here. All right, so I'm going to put the first name, space, and then the last name. Okay. Next. All right. You can have attachments for the email there. And then finally save that. Okay. So I've got my business rules set up. Now I'm going to come back over here and let's test it out. Okay, so let's put something in here. Put a name in there, that's fine. We're going to do that for the reservation status. We're going to put in active or planned or something like that. Okay, I'll just throw some values in here. All right, bed size, they want a king. And for the room, they want a suite. And I haven't signed them a room number yet, so I'm going to save that. Okay, now this is all, it's been saved and the status is active. So what I want to do now is I'm going to change this to canceled. Okay, and I don't have to save, but I'm going to. So with that, that email would go. All right, so now you've got an idea of how some of these business rules would work. We encourage you to play around and see what you can do there. And then don't forget to look at the existing ones if you want ideas or even want help with the syntax. Okay, so for additional help on business rules, you can go to Home, Administer, and then Using Business Rules, and you'll see all the different business rule types in there and the syntax and ideas of how you might use those. Don't forget to join the Ivanti Insider program. And we've put together a couple of exercises that you can do. One is initialization rule for rewards member. That's the one that I created earlier where I added a rewards member field on my main business object. And I created an initialization rule where I simply put true, which means it's going to put a check mark in that box. Okay, so the other one was if a reservation status changes to canceled. And so if the reservation status gets changed to canceled, we had it email the host department, about not making as many cookies or something like that.